This is Jen and Andy with Ins and Outcasts, and hello. Can you hear me?
Okay, I see the stream is running, and
Okay.
I hear your lovely voice.
Hello. Can you hear me? Hello, hello.
Oh, let's try that again. I muted the site on accident because I'm
Oh,
silly.
can you hear me? Hello.
Yep, I can hear you
Testing.
fine.
1, 2, 3. Yay.
Uh, maybe turn mine down just a skosh and turn yours up just a skosh.
So turn mine back up and turn yours down.
Mm-hmm.
How's that?
Yep, just a little bit.
It was. Hello.
That's good.
Okay,
Yep,
mine's
that's
all
fine.
the way up.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, that's good because you talk very softly, so
Well,
that will help a little bit.
I could move my microphone closer to me like this.
I don't think that really changed much.
Okay.
I think it was picking you up just fine before.
Okay. All right. So, are we ready to start?
Turn me up just an itty bitty bit, like a little hair's breadth up.
How's that?
Okay, it should be good.
Okay.
Waiting for the delay. Okay. Yeah. So now we can probably start
Okay.
minute till anyways.
Alrighty.
Okay. Hi everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Today we're doing an art stream with Jen, and we have a big fancy surprise for you that we worked really hard on. Like honestly, Jen put about close to 20 hours into coloring our box art, and we took all the footage of all the times that she spent doing that, and we crammed it into a 1 hour video, which is what you're seeing in the background. So just note that she does not go this fast, not even on her best day with like 3 energy drinks and a cup of coffee.
I wish I could go this fast.
Yeah. Uh, just for anyone who's curious, this is a 16 times acceleration rate, so
Yep.
that is fast by a lot.
Yep. So, this is a total of 16 hours and about 45 minutes worth of recorded footage. I did spend a bit more than that doing the art. I either forgot to unpause, um, or I did some not on the computer, like the drawing and the inking and stuff was done by hand.
Mm-mm. So I would say overall you probably put what, like 50, 60 hours into this piece.
Um, I think maybe about 30 overall, 30
Mm.
total hours. Um, I believe it took me a total of 5 weeks to complete, just because, I work full time, so I'm doing this um, in short bursts. Um, when I
Yeah,
have,
but that's still like if you're
yeah.
looking at five weeks, you're adding 6 hours a week to each week in terms of productivity. I know you already work 50-ish hours a week,
Yeah,
so
yeah. So,
you know getting close to 60 hours a week there, it's a little untenable to run
yep. So
that hard.
short little bursts of art. Usually it'd be, an hour here, 2 hours, sometimes 3 or 4, depending. Um, yep. So it's the beginning of this. I know we've done past art talks for during a lot of the base color, so we'll go through that pretty quick here, and then we'll get into the actual shading of the piece.
Mm-hmm. So one thing we were talking about while we put this video together for everybody to watch is what do you think you've learned over the course of this project?
Um, that's a good question. Using shortcuts is really helpful, And I think I start doing that a little bit further into this video. I had talked about it, but actually making shortcuts for yourself can really speed up your process. Like here, I'm doing everything like through the menu to expand and then fill. Well, you can record an action or a set of actions and set that to keyboard shortcuts. So I end up doing that later, and it really helps speed up filling in all of those background colors.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And we had also talked. Another thing that you do is like your your technique is using a mouse in Photoshop.
Yes,
Um,
I do have a tablet monitor that I'm not super familiar with yet. I've used tablets in the past to do art, and they're nice. Um, but for this style, like I don't know, I just it feels more natural to me, I guess. Like easier to do for I guess short pieces.
well, the advantage we had talked about for what you were doing this way versus the way you could have been doing it with brush strokes is this was a very slow but deliberate method.
Mhm.
There's very little retracing that you end up doing as a result. You
Right.
know, like
Right. So I for this method I can fill with a solid color once I make that selection. And then if I want to delete something, I just make another selection and delete it. So it's not like a traditional painting where you're blending colors together. I do very little blending of anything. It's mainly spot colors that are layered on top of each other. So it makes um, it kind of makes it easier to work with because I don't have to try to, really shade anything. Traditionally, anyway, I rely sometimes on using gradients for certain effects, but that's probably the extent of anything super fancy. Um, and then I just use different layer properties like multiply, um, either color dodge, color burn, some of those uh, actual individual layer properties just to manipulate the color that I put in. Yeah.
gotcha. Uh, yeah. So, what was the most challenging thing of this piece?
Um. Hmm. Probably some of the shadows. Um. Because I have like my main light source I've put above the characters, kind of like a pendant light hanging over the table. So everybody is getting light cast on them differently. Um, so it's kind of figuring out how those shadows will work, especially on the bard when we get back around to the bard. Like, um, the bard I think was a big challenge. Trying to figure out how his shadows would work on him. The other ones weren't so bad, but the bard definitely was a challenge, especially since he's like in the middle of the table, whereas everybody else is kind of around the edge of the table.
Mm. No, I would actually argue with that and say that the biggest challenge was the thief's hair.
Um, yeah, I mean,
I'm just for the amount of time that you spent on the project for it.
yeah, her,
I think you spent like a total of like 3 actual days just working on her hair.
yeah. So her hair is pretty complicated, but I enjoy the challenge of doing curly hair. Um, it's it kind of ties back into some of my more traditional pen and ink drawings that I do, that's heavily textured with um, hair strands and stuff. Like, um, I think that's probably why I went so overboard with the curly hairs, just because I really like the flowing locks and stuff. Um,
Oh, hey, slight warning to viewers. There, because we're working at such high speeds, there could be some flashing lights.
Oh,
Um,
yes.
if you
Yes.
are prone to seizures, do not watch this video. That warning already came a little late, but do keep that in mind. We'll be sure to post that on YouTube when we get there. But if you're watching right now, know that the flashing lights don't stop. So please, if you are sensitive to flickering lights, I don't want anything bad to happen to you.
Yeah, we kind of move pretty quickly through the video here. Um,
Well, by necessity.
yeah.
We're literally cramming 16 hours into an hour or so.
Yep.
Um,
All right, so here is the start of the shading work. I actually use um, multiply on a separate layer, and then I'm using like a purple. It's the same purple color for pretty much every shadow. Um, though on the guard's hair, I think it's set to 50% opacity, and then everything else is 75, just because her hair is so light. It looked kind of odd being such a dark shadow. There you can kind of see the difference in that opacity as I put in her other shadows. It's a bit darker.
no, I'm setting you up with a softball question. Why
Yeah.
do you use purple for shadows?
What do I use? What?
Purple for shadows.
Oh, okay. So shadows in nature are actually a purple hue, and that is because if you know anything about the science of light and how, you know, light works, purple is the opposite color of yellow. Our sun is mainly yellow. The light it shines is yellow. Um, so if an object is blocking light, basically the color that cannot be reflected off of that object is then shown behind it, which would be purple. So yellow can't, you know, the yellow sun reflecting or hitting an object casts its opposite behind it, which would be the purple hue.
Mm-hmm. Cool. I thought that's always an interesting fact,
Yeah,
worth bringing up again
yep.
and again and again.
Well, so funny story, when I was first learning art, I knew nothing about that. And I would make all of my shadows with like black paint, like, and I always wondered like why my paintings and stuff just looked strange. It's because shadows aren't black, they're purple. Or sometimes a bluish tint, but they're mainly purple, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm using kind of a grayish purple. You can see it up in the upper right hand corner. Um, and I try to use that throughout. I know in my cards, I think there's the thief is maybe one that doesn't follow, but then by the time I did the rest of the cards, they're all the same. That's also why she has such colorful hair, is because she was the first card.
Gotcha. Now, so technically, you could have done this shading in Illustrator, right?
I could have, but I would find, while I could do the shading with like the pen tool, um, creating an area, anytime I want to delete something, would be a little trickier. Um, you'll see in some areas where I will um, fill in a
Right.
whole
You'd almost have
area.
to use like you'd have to use like the Pathfinder tool to create negative space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
so here like I can quickly select an area And if I decide I want, like here, for instance, I've selected or filled an area and then I deleted a few areas for highlights. It's, I think, a lot quicker. Um, just being able to select an area, fill it, and then, oh, hey, if I need to change something, no big deal. I can just select another area and delete it. And I use shortcut keys for filling. So Alt backspace will fill um, the box. So you have two colors. You have a foreground and a background color, which you can switch between using the X key. But the Alt backspace will fill the box that's on the left, and then Control backspace will fill the color that's on the right, the background
Mm-hmm.
color. So you can basically have two colors preloaded. Usually I keep the shadow color as one, and then um, like other character colors I'll switch between for the other one. Sometimes I just forget and I only use the the alt backspace or the foreground color.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Let's see. Oh, cool. Um, so what's this image going to be used for? I mean, we're going to use it like crazy, I'm sure, because it's beautiful. But what are your initial plans for it?
So this is the illustration that will be on our new box. When we first made our prototype, we did that pretty quickly. I had already planned on having this image made, just didn't have the time to get that done for the initial prototype. So this image will be what we'll see on our new box. So
Gotcha. And how was it working with a manufacturer? Because something tells me that's not the same as just being able to do freeform art willy nilly, however you like, right?
that's true. So Um, by the time I talked to one of the manufacturers for getting quotes and stuff, we kind of knew what our pieces would be, especially from all the feedback that we got at Gen Con. Um, I I approached them knowing like, oh hey, we need this many cards, this many tokens of this many sizes. Um, Now tell me what the smallest box, you know, all of this will fit in. Um, so they eventually got back to me, and we kind of noodled out like, okay, we want a box that, if we want to add an expansion into it or have space for, if people want to sleeve all of their cards or whatever, that there would be space for that. So after a very long email chain, we came to the conclusion a box, I think it was about just shy of 6 by 9 inches, which that's what I then used to base my overall image size on. Um, I wanted to make sure that what I was drawing would fit the space. That's one thing that I didn't really take into consideration when I was first drawing the card art. Like, I just kind of drew them in my sketchbook and then I had to kind of alter things after the fact to make sure that they fit in their cards. Um, but this one I was trying to plan ahead and figure out, what size, at least what size ratio I was using. All right, here is the fun section of coloring the thief's hair.
Right. I know you say that with a little bit of sarcasm, but you actually did have
Oh
fun
yeah, yeah,
with this section.
yeah.
So, just understand, folks. I know I can sense her wry sarcasm from a mile away.
So I'm always, when I do this, I'm kind of planning like where I want those hair strands to go. Um, it's mainly like what direction, how many spikes, kind of thing. Like what, you know, it's more so free form, I guess. Because it's all kind of at random in real time as I'm doing this. I don't have any plan for where these pieces are going. It's just, I think this looks good. I'll put this here. Um, and then also keeping in mind like where the light is coming from. So like the back of her hair closest to the guard will be darker. Um, her little bang swirls in the front are closer to the front light, so that's going to be a little lighter.
Mm-hmm. Um, do you have any regrets about that decision of doing it freeform?
Um, Not really. It's kind of how I also ink. I'll kind of figure out where the, light and dark is going to be and then just build that up. Um, and then I can always add or subtract more if I need to. I kind of like having it be a little bit more loose and less planned.
Gotcha. Um, hmm.
I mean, the
Cool.
the one the one part where I could have planned is maybe um like face shadows, like really think about that before um getting into it. But I think just having a light reference, like okay, the light here is going to be pointing straight down, or here it's coming from the side or something. Um, but always knowing where your light is coming from and just kind of trying to keep that in mind when um, putting in highlights and shadows.
Mm-hmm. I see.
Yep.
So clearly this means that you're all said and done. That everything you could possibly do is done, right? Like there's no more art to be done
Oh,
for the game.
I wish that was the case.
Do you really wish that was the
No,
case,
I
though?
don't.
I
No, I
mean,
don't. No.
okay.
um, I think right now my plate is even fuller. Um, I just added how many? Was it 15? 15
I think
image,
so.
yeah, 15 images that I need to put together for our Kickstarter, mainly used in like our campaign banners and stuff. But I also have the art for our next expansion that I need to finish. Everything's sketched, I just have to ink and color it. But of course, this was the priority, getting the box art done. Um,
Why is that the big priority? Yeah, you want to share on that? Like, what's going on?
for getting the box art done?
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
our Kickstarter will be launching in a week or so.
I thought it was because we were reaching out to another vendor and we wanted to get a quote with the new box.
Oh, yeah.
Like, wasn't that the whole point? Like, the reason that you're killing yourself to get this done
Oh, yeah.
quickly was to.
um, so we want to get our next prototype of with all the new art and components and stuff. Um, so
Yeah, if we can get a new component, if that way we just have something cool to show you guys
yeah, yeah.
when we're running our Kickstarter. Real quick, can you take a look in the Discord chat and tell me what you think?
From what I see, it looks good.
Okay,
Yeah, that looks
cool.
nice.
All right.
Okay.
Sorry. While she's doing this,
That
I'm prepping some ad work for us. And I just want to make sure that she's okay with what I'm doing to her poor beautiful cards.
looks fine. Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah. Yes, so we are going to try and get some new prototypes in. Um, that way we can do like a cool little unboxing video and stuff like that. And then
Yeah.
we can show you something a little closer in line with the new innovations we've done. Like
Mm-hmm.
we've changed the format of the cards a little bit, and we've redone the art, the box design, and we've redone our coins a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
and just nothing that's like gonna be like, oh my god, this isn't a like it's still very much the same game that people played when they played. If you got to play the prototype, this is the same game, I promise you. But what's different now is we've put a little bit more work into polish. I think is really the area that it's
Yep.
you know
Yep.
it's changed.
Kind of solidifying all of the pieces, making them all cohesive, understandable.
And a little bit future proof too.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yep.
we have some fun mechanics we wanted to do with a character that involved kind of like a little bit of gambling, and we were racking our brains on how to like not actually gambling, but like the idea was that you do some guessing, and we're like, okay, that's cool, but how do you record a guess?
Yep.
Like if I got up and walked away from the table, would I know what I guessed? And now we have a way to record that
Mm-hmm.
in the game, and we're really happy with how that works. And it makes we got rid of the tiny little Euro cards. So for all you people who love to sleeve cards, you don't have to buy two different sets of sleeves for our game. I mean, you can if you want to, but you don't need the Euro sleeves anymore, which is a nicety, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, just little things like that. Whatever we can really do to just make the experience better
Yep.
for you and for everybody else at your table. Okay. Um yeah, that's my spiel about what we've been working on. And why it's such a why it's been a huge priority for us too. Like it's not like this has just been a back burner kind of thing. We're like, oh no.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're wondering why we delayed the Kickstarter for a week, which by the way, we delayed the Kickstarter for a week, guys. I don't know if you got the memo or not, but that is in fact something that happened. And the reason why we did that was Facebook got a little crazy of late with ads, apparently, and our the guy we hired to give us advice on this matter said, "Hey, um, I don't feel comfortable doing an ad without doing a little bit of research." So they needed a bit more time, and we're like, "Okay, you're the you're the expert." So that's what we did.
Yep.
Um, and when you pay someone to give you advice, it's really dumb to not at least heed the advice. You don't necessarily have to take it. This is true, but you should probably at least consider it, right?
Yep.
Because it's always astounding when someone pays, or if you're asking for critique, that's another. This is a personal point, but like if you ask someone for critique, please understand that they're not just saying whatever comes to mind. They're hopefully taking time to give you thoughtful feedback that you in fact need. Otherwise, you wouldn't have asked them for it. So if you're doing that, listen to it.
Yep.
At the very least, acknowledge it. If you're going to ignore it, that's up to you. But like, people won't give you feedback if you keep ignoring them. I can promise you that. Right?
Right.
Jenny's like, shots fired over here.
So
um,
here is
yeah.
in the video, here is one of the few times where I actually used the brush tool, putting in the color for his eyes, because he didn't have colored eyes in his card, but now he does. Um, and there's a few areas like the mouse's ears and tail, um, And then later, when I get to the color effects with the mage for his magic, that'll all mainly be done with the brush tool or some brush effects. So everything else is pretty much the same um, with the using the lasso tool.
Yeah. Any advice you would give to people now that you've come out the other side of this really complex project?
Um, I always try to break my pieces into small chunks. Like I work basically one character at a time, and then I had like all the table stuff was um, its own section. Um, so like I did all the shadows for the guard, and then I did all the shadows for the thief, and just kind of work that way. That way it's not so overwhelming. Um, and like I did the same with the base color. I filled in all of the base color first, one character at a time, um, just so that it's kind of less complicated, I would say. You won't feel so overwhelmed breaking things into smaller pieces.
Mm-hmm. How about for staying focused and or motivated?
Work in small chunks. You don't have to finish an image all in one sitting, even if it's a commission, unless they're paying you to have something done right away. Well, you got yourself in that mess. um,
I
but
feel like there's some history there behind that statement.
just break things into small time increments. Say, set yourself an hour to work on something. Um, since I was doing recorded videos this whole time, I tried to stop myself, say, every hour, just so I had an hour's worth of footage, and then I would, get up and go do something else for a little bit or take a break before coming back to it. But I always try to work in smaller increments of time. Um, and then also, like, when you get a big chunk finished, like, pull yourself away and just let yourself absorb what you've done, because you may see things that look off or even get feedback from someone else. Like there, I've changed what the bard's shading is on his face based on feedback. Um, so it's always good, have other eyes look at what you're doing, because you may think it's okay until someone else sees it differently, and then you may see it then too. So always get, you know, other opinions, I think.
Mm-hmm. Oh, if you're working with anyone who's putting together footage, by the way, and you're recording a bunch of files, this is just a little brief. Make sure, like, when you do a series of files, like, come up with a good naming convention that will help you distinguish which files are which. This is just a good practice to get into for any discipline that involves files, but like in our case we had done the files by date, which is great, and they had timestamps on them that helped them delineate which file we're talking about, and there was the date and I believe the runtime of each file. And so Jen had given me this nice little list of files, and I took them, but I had to convert them. And when I converted them, it stripped out all of that data that kept them in order, because
Oh.
I ordered everything by date. Well, now they were all being made on the same date. Rough, and since it was in big batches, some of them were big chunks, and they came out like out of order. So I ended up doing this whole video and then I had to redo it because the sequence was all screwed up. So it's not the end of the world, but it's one of those things where it's like you live and you learn, and this is
Yep.
a good opportunity to make sure that you learn from our mistakes, and try and save yourself some trouble. Get into the habit of doing a good file naming convention, and make sure that, like, if it's the footage from 1013, make sure it's 1013-1, 1013-2, whatever you got to do to make it so that the next person, if you're working in a team, you can never have too much information,
Yeah.
right?
So I just used the default naming
Oh,
convention. That's
yeah.
what it automatically saved as.
Oh, for sure. And if I was smarter about what I was doing, I would have just not done that. Like I wouldn't have batch converted into the next file set without paying attention. But I make the trick is we all make mistakes, right? Like we
Yep.
all are prone to human error.
Yep.
It's probably one of the few things that binds everybody together.
Yep.
Um, so here's the trick: if you at the very tippy top of the chain, and I'm not like coming after Jen, like she knows we've already been over this. Like this is, and honestly, this is more my fault than anyone else's. But if you look out for the person at the next step of the chain, that just gives one more layer of protection for human error,
Yep.
right? So that's all I'm advocating is just, you know, it's stuff like that that I honestly don't think about either. So this is a good opportunity to talk about it.
Yep. All right, so on the Thane, I just used a bunch of additive subtractive method of coloring. I filled in one big area and then subtracted out areas, and then I filled in other areas. Basically, yeah, like additive and subtractive. And I think I do that several times through his beard here as well. Like here, I'm going to try to fill an area and then subtract out. Um, and sometimes it works well, other times it doesn't, and it's better just to do it a certain way. So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's tough for me to like not get lost in watching these kind of videos. They're always hypnotic, and yeah. Okay. Wait, what? What is going on with this? No, are some of these off center? That'd be terrible. No. Oh, goody.
so I think one of the biggest challenges to this method is probably figuring out like how shadows fall on the face. Like
Mm.
other objects, you can kind of guess, like hard objects, like okay, it's a sphere or something. You can kind of, well, the shadow would be on this side, but like for a face, because well, all faces are different and they have a whole bunch of different planes to them. Like figuring out where those shadows are going to be, I think, is probably the most challenging. So a lot of times I try to fudge it. um, and then other times I really try to figure it out. Like, okay, if his nose is here and his nostrils there, then there should be a shadow here. Um, yeah, it can be
Well, and
difficult.
that's also where you're kind of, yeah, it's one of the, I think that's one of the toughest challenges doing any kind of art form, right?
Yep.
Because as an artist, you have to do two things simultaneously. You have to make products, or you have to make good composition, and you have to make skillful composition. And
Mm-hmm.
so like if you're 100% true to rendering of your light, that limits your ability to make a skillful composition, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you're bound by whatever your light source is.
Right.
So if you fudge the light source, then you're losing out on the fidelity of accuracy.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, uh, so it's not just about making perfect shadows. It's also about making good composition choices and making good
Right.
choices about like the way the viewer's eye is drawn to areas, because if you
Right.
have areas that are heavy shadow and heavy light, those impact your your weight, and they impact your you know uh your movement through your piece too. So
Right.
it's all stuff that you have to balance when you're doing the art stuffs.
Right. One artist that I can't remember off the top of my head, he basically his theory was if it looks believable, um, people will believe it. uh,
Well, I think one of the best things from game design that I ever heard was that real realism is overrated. Like,
yeah.
you
Um,
don't have to be 100% accurate all the time.
yeah. This artist does a lot of like sci-fi vehicles and stuff. He starts with like a doodle, very rough, and then out of that little doodle, he will make these really elaborate kind of sci-fi vehicles. And it's like as long as it looks believable, why couldn't it work like that? So it's the same principle here. Like if your shadows fall in the right places, even if they may not be 100% accurate, um, it'll still feel like they're right.
Hmm. And I think the other part of that comes down to consistency too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's a big if you're going to deviate from reality, that's fine, you can do that, but you have to be consistent with your rules, or people are
Mm-hmm.
going to look at it and they're going to be like, is this an either you're MC Escher or I'm having a stroke. Like, there's nothing crazier than seeing a thing that's like all over the place and like trying to parse it. It's just like, no, it's too much, put it back. So yeah.
Yep.
So one of the fun things that uh, what are some of the interesting challenges that come with box design as opposed to any other kind of like media specifically?
Um. Well, I'll make this kind of a story. I was recently on Facebook on one of the many Facebook groups for like game design and stuff, and there was a guy who was, he's developed his game and now he's looking to get it finished, but it's like he's skipping several key elements here. Um, he doesn't have a graphic designer to make his rule book. He doesn't have, you know, a lot of things for him. He just has basically how this game plays. Um, so what I have come across is, you know, you kind of have to develop with your end game in mind. Um, you can make all these components. And this is something that we came across. We made these tokens, we had these cards, and we wanted it in the smallest box possible. Um, so our initial, I guess, goal was to have it in this small, like 4 by 6 inch box. All fine and dandy, all the cards would fit, all the tokens would fit, except when you purchase a game, your tokens, they all come in like unpunched. They all come in a flat sheet of cardboard where you punch them all out. Um, so if you're not planning for what these pieces are to fit in the box, um, you may come across some hurdles. And so this guy, like, it was the same scenario as like what we were coming across. Like, okay, we have all these tokens, um, but they're not going to fit in the box. Like to have a 4 by 6 inch box with the amount of tokens that we originally had, it would take 15 punch sheets, and it's like that's not viable for a 4 by 6 inch box. Like, yeah, it would be great, everything would fit, but not packaged from the manufacturer. That's why we had to increase our box size. Um, yeah, so it's just kind of planning, like, okay, what are all of your components, and how do you want them in that space? Um, I kind of went through the same process with another game I worked on, um, kind of figuring out, okay, if you have these little components, where would they fit? You know, um, so working with a manufacturer, for instance, like I worked for several weeks now with Long Pack, and we kind of went back and forth before we came to our final box size, and that's all the info that I needed. Like, I need to know what size box will be the end piece, because that will determine how big I can make my rule book. That will determine how big I can make our little play mats. Um, it was mainly those components because they need to be reworked for the larger box. So yeah, it's very important knowing what your limitations are for your game.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And your first design usually doesn't work out so hot.
No,
Like ultimately,
right, yeah,
like one of the big things we found out was like, oh, we'll just increase the number of these tokens and everything will be fine. And then we got an email back that said, hey, if we do that, you're gonna have 15 punch boards in your box,
right,
and you'll have to go with a taller box. And we're
right,
like, oh, well, gee.
right. And so it also like um it also means that probably all of the previous quotes that we've gotten are inaccurate, because we said, oh, we just want a 4 by 6 inch box. We have these pieces. But they didn't actually go through the whole step by step of, oh, hey, that's not going to fit in there, you know? And that was as having the previous experience working on a different game, like, that's definitely like where I started. It's like, will these fit in this box? And the answer was no, they won't fit in a 4 by 6 inch box. So that was good info. We did streamline our tokens. We added 2 additional currencies and then changed a little bit of the game, um, so that we can kind of reduce the amount of tokens that we need overall. So between those two things and increasing the box size, we can. I think it was 4 punch sheets is what it came down to. So
Mm-hmm.
a definite improvement from 15, which I believe is, I want to say, an inch and a half worth of material, or close to that.
Mm. Gotcha. Sorry, I'm fighting with Illustrator right now because apparently it decided not to let me use the alignment tool like I wanted to use it.
Oh.
It's just being finicky. That's all.
Yeah.
It's not the end of the world.
Yep. So here I'm adding the magic sparkles. I have I use a brush called Kyle's Splatter Brush. I don't recall where I got it from. I think it's something I either purchased or downloaded or something. And then I also just use the regular brush tool to kind of accentuate some of those little sparkles. And here I'm altering the original line work. I'm actually trying to make it more in line with what the card has on it. So I'm switching the colors of the books there, making the top one red because it makes more sense that if the mage is later going to be reading a book, it should be the one that was on top.
Yeah. So I guess this kind of feeds into like sequential storytelling, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is uh, fancy slang for comics and animation, basically. Anytime where you have a sequence of images that's telling a story visually, this is the before, and the next, like the gameplay, the cards from that are the after, right?
Yep. So this group shot, basically they've all come to the table. They've put all their loot on the middle of the table, and they're about to split it up. So the scene here is happening just before the art and the cards. So the mage hasn't picked up his book yet. The goblins haven't lit their bomb yet. Um, let's see. The thief is about to steal the bard's little coin purse, which you'll see in her card that she's stolen his coin purse. Um, the Thane has a full mug of beer, things like that. So just to kind of, if you're paying attention, see that, oh hey, look, this was right before the other card.
Mm-hmm. All right. One sec. This is gonna drive me nuts. For some reason, I cannot get this to work the way I want it to. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe they're not grouped proper. That's usually what it is, right? Yeah, that's what it is.
Or if
Jeez.
or if you accidentally lock something and it stays in place.
I don't. I get tired of that, so I usually just kind of avoid locking stuff and just get clever about grouping into selection traits. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I know that's probably the most backwards way to handle it. It's like, oh, I can't solve this problem. I better use napalm. Um, like the Molotov cocktail will solve your current problem, but it will leave you with an entirely new problem.
Yep.
No, it's because I didn't group the stuff before I centered it, so I was getting all kinds of wacky results. But now I think I'm gonna be okay. Yeah, baby. Yeah, just I know I mentioned that we moved it our Kickstarter before, but we'll be starting our Kickstarter in a week from tomorrow, so the 26th of October. How you feeling about it?
I'm feeling pretty good. I'm trying to get as many of these extra images done as fast as possible. I'm glad that I
Right.
got the box art done. That was a big job. Um, and you probably don't realize just how much time something is going to take, but this is a lot of detail. Um, there's essentially, let's see, not counting the little goblins, there's 5 big characters and then just all the mess that's on the table. And that's going to take a lot of time, all that detail stuff. So, like, putting on all of the shading for the coins, and the highlights, so it's a pretty big task to do. I couldn't imagine if I was actually doing like a fully rendered illustration, like full gradient. color and stuff, that probably would take forever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, probably. So this is why artists are always in demand. So if you if you're an artist and you don't think that your work is gonna be wanted by anybody, I can guarantee you you're probably mistaken on that.
Right.
Like there's usually someone that needs an artist and usually needs them pretty badly. So, just get good at what you do is
Yep.
really the only answer I can get to that one,
Yep.
right?
Yep. And I hope like this also for all the non-artists out there, like realizing just how long it can take to do one image. Like this was, probably 30 hours of total work from start to finish just for this one image. Um, and it's, if
That's that was streamlined because of the amount of time that you'd spent doing previous images for this.
yeah, like since I already had color references and images to work off of, like I can easily pick colors from what I already did in the past. So I have that going for me. Um, but other than that, like it's still like so much work just coloring everything. It's very time consuming to do. So if you see other artists speed paints, just know that like that's probably, you know, 10, 20 hours just smashed into one short video that you watched.
Yep, it creates the illusion that this stuff is a quick process, but
Mm-hmm.
uh, I mean, in some cases it can be, but if you want really high fidelity stuff,
Oh yeah.
it just takes time. That's the only recipe that matters is that time is the number one ingredient.
Right.
Okay, cool. Well, I got our ad pieces up for that to work. So look forward to some exciting new advertisements coming from Game Changing Designs. But yeah, it's been the other side of like it's I this crowdfunding thing is neat and all, but the one thing that's kind of maddening is how much time we have had to spend developing skills outside of our core
Mm-hmm.
competency of we make games, not we make games plus do all this other
Right.
stuff. Like, don't get me wrong, it's important for us to do, but it's a learning curve, and it's an important learning curve,
Right.
right? So, but we're happy to do it, and I really hope that that this is useful information for people, and that they've been having fun watching this kind of magic unfold. Because, like, honestly, we're getting close to the tail end of the video here. I can tell
Mm-hmm.
because the wine glass was one of the last things that was done. And it doesn't hurt that I cheated and looked at the time, but I only looked at the time just now. So, yeah. Yeah, this is a good piece. And it was really nice. I'm really glad. Like, we'll probably do this a lot more in the future of recording
Mm-hmm.
uh, footage as we go through developing assets. That way, creates a nice footprint for us to be able to tell how far we're coming on stuff. But, it also makes nice content for viewers like you.
Yep. Yeah, I have a few videos of some of the graphic design work. I think one of our next videos will be constructing the actual box design, um, and seeing what goes into that. Some places will give you templates and stuff, but I had to kind of make my own image up from out of nothing. So that's kind of a new experience. Wasn't
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll save that chat for the next time though. Don't want to go into too much detail on that one yet.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Here, here. Okay. Well, We got people talking.
So you may notice, like I reference the original Photoshop drawings that I made, because in certain areas I have layers set to different lighting effects. So I'm going in and actually checking what those parameters were set to. Um, that way, both images will look more the same, similar. Um, that's mainly the goal here is, get it won't be 100% the same, but it's to get it to look close enough. I know there's a few things that are still a little different from one drawing to the other, um, but for the color, I'm trying to get it to be pretty accurate from the original.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. So I hope everybody enjoyed the little bit of magic and wonder that is seeing this picture come to life. I know it was a treat for us. I mean, for us, it was a very slow burn because remember, this was over the course of like 5 weeks for us.
Yep.
And that was also after Jen kept getting dragged off to other temporary art needs.
Yep.
So there was some air in the pipes too.
So here I'm trying to get that kind of magic light effect added in using the little splatter brush. And then I'm actually fixing the mage's eyeball here, or eyelid, because it kind of bugged me, the shape of it. So
Mm.
I'm kind of fixing the lines, adjusting that a little bit.
Yeah. One thing that's really important is also knowing when to stop editing.
Yeah.
It's a really hard skill to develop, but you have to eventually be able to um, say, hey, you know, we do this, I could do this for 1,000 hours
Oh,
and it would
yeah.
never come out.
Yeah, I could keep adding things here and there and everywhere. Um, but at some point, it just has to be done. There is a thing called overworking a piece. Um,
I think we
so
can see some of that happening right now with that book cover. Well, I'm just saying I don't remember if that makes it to the end or not.
yeah, it does.
I think some of it does.
Some
Okay.
of it does. I think that's how it ended. I'm sure. Oh, yep, I think that stays because here I'm doing a little cheat to add in the table lines.
Oh yeah, like by all means cheat whenever you if you can cheat and make it look good, do so,
Yep.
right? Like that's a very important thing to note. Like it's absolutely okay to do yourself a favor and do a trick or two if it gets the job done, especially if you're using digital tools. Like that's
Mm-hmm.
exactly why those tools were built is to do things that let save you some time.
Yeah.
Use patterns, use all sorts of stuff. And we're gonna go ahead and wrap up the stream a little earlier. At least I'm gonna hop off for a sec because we have a meeting getting ready to start in a minute here.
Okay. Well, this is almost over. There's not a whole lot left. Probably like 30 seconds.
Okie dokie. Thank you all for watching.
Thank you. And see you next time. Oh, did you want to cover when the next stream is going to be?
Uh, we'll probably have to do a separate update for that because there's a lot of stuff going.
And there is the final image.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining in on this stream with us, and we'll catch you next time.
Yep. Take care.